In the Confessions, Augustine gives a long analysis of the psychology of sin, which has become a classic in Christian literature. He demonstrates great perceptual perspicuity in showing how irrational thoughts and desires arise in the human mind and cause us to commit sinful acts. With the famous story of how, in his youth, he together with his young friends stole some pears from the neighbor's tree, he illustrates the impulse at work. Neither he nor his friends were in any financial need. They could easily have bought the pears or anything else they wanted to eat, so they were not driven by hunger or natural human need. Moreover, the pears themselves were not yet ripe and thus inedible, and so Augustine and his companions simply threw them away. In the end, they gained nothing from their actions. Augustine returns repeatedly to the question of why they did this, given that there was no profit in it. His insight is that this is just a part of human nature, or if you will, the human mind. Humans are, by nature, sinful and commit irrational actions of this kind, and there's no real deeper explanation of it. He understands his action as a form of rebellion against God. Here again, we can see a revolution in human thinking. In antiquity, there was a clear sense that evil was a real force in the world. The fates thus had it that Oedipus would commit the evil acts of killing his father and marrying his mother, and there's nothing he can do to prevent this. Although he himself indeed committed the acts, he did not intend to do so, and it was as if there were some force of fate that was acting through him. In short, the evil element was something external in the world that manifested itself in him. Similarly, in the ancient Persian religion, Zoroastrianism, evil is a fact of the world that comes from the god of evil, Ahriman. This view was later developed in the religion of Manichaeanism, which Augustine was attracted to for many years. The dualistic religion, which traces its origin to the Persian prophet Mani, also conceives of two gods, one good and one evil, which are locked in a spiritual conflict. A variant of this view can be found in the Gnostic dualism between God and the world that was popular during Augustine's time. According to the Manichaean conception of things, people do evil things not because they want or intend to, but because the evil god induces them to do so. Once again, evil is something external in the world. Now with Christianity, this all changes. The external becomes something internal. Evil is not a fact about the external world, but instead, its origin is in the inwardness of the human heart. Evil enters into the world by human agency, through the thoughts and deeds of individuals. It's a natural consequence of human freedom, which means that people can choose good or evil, with the result that some make the wrong choice. Elsewhere, Augustine denies explicitly that evil is a real principle or thing in the external world, as the Zoroastrians and Manichaeans claim. He makes the case that evil is not an independent force or principle in itself, since this would imply that God, who created everything, is also responsible for it. Instead, evil is merely something negative, a privation of the good. People thus commit evil acts when their thoughts and intents are deprived of the principle of the good, which they have received by virtue of being created in the image of God. For our purposes, the key point is simply that the conception of evil goes from being something conceived as an external entity or fact about the world to something connected to the inward life of the individual. A vestige of the older conception of evil as something external can also be found in the Judeo-Christian conception of the devil, who can, in many ways, be seen as an entity like Ahriman in Zoroastrianism. We've seen the devil, or Satan, was the one responsible for the trials of Job. It was also the devil who, in the Synoptic Gospels, is said to have tempted Christ. The devil represents evil incarnated as an external being. This is clearly a holdover from the earlier conception, which stands in contrast to the newer one, which conceives of evil as a part of the inwardness of each human being. The ancient conception of evil as something external is also an expression of the ancient conception of the limitation of human agency in the world. Evil is too great to be attributed to finite human beings. Therefore, it must have its origin in a divinity or in nature itself. But now with Christianity, which ascribes the origin of evil to the human heart, a great value accrues to the human being. Now humans bear an enormous responsibility for the evil that happens in the world, since they are the cause of it. In Zoroastrianism and in the Greek world, one could lament the evil that one saw in the world, but one was not personally culpable for it. Its cause was something external. Now with Christianity, humans take on a new sense of responsibility for their actions and indeed their thoughts and intentions. They're responsible for the evil in their lives and in the world around them.